Welcome to episode 304 of Sports Geek. This week's episode, I catch up with Fiona Green to discuss why data is now more important than ever.
Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who's ready to order a new pair of sneakers, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, my name is Sean Callanan, and you are listening to Sports Geek. You can find me at the Sports Geek website, sportsgeekhq.com. You can find the Sports Geek podcast on all good podcast platforms. If you would be so kind, I would love you to leave a review on Apple podcasts. It does help with the rankings. It helps other people find it, and that is very much appreciative. Don't forget, because we are talking data, you can go to sportsgeekhq.com and sign up for Sports Geek News to get a weekly email outlining what I read and what I use and what I've been listening to. So if you want to, you can sign up for that at Sports Geek HQ. Otherwise, you can contact me, Sean at Sports Geek HQ or at Sean Callanan or at Sports Geek on most platforms. This week's episode, I have a returning guest. Fiona Green is a good friend of mine from Winners in England, and she is one of the experts in the world of data. And what I wanted to do, and I spoke about it in the previous episode, was to get the guest list, get the guest program and the guest pipeline. That's the word I'm looking for, pipeline. No need to edit this. I eventually get there. To get the pipeline moving, I'm bringing back some returning guests to really talk about the industry and how it is starting to recover. And hopefully it is starting to recover. So I'd love for your suggestions on which guests you'd like to hear from again. Who would you like to hear on the podcast? Who would you like to hear how they're dealing with pivoting, looking to revive, all those keywords as we're coming out of COVID. Is there a particular guest you want to hear from? Please let me know. And as I said last week, if there is someone that you either work with currently or former, or someone you look up to, someone you'd like to hear from, someone you'd like to hear me discuss the ins and outs of the sports business, whether it be digital, technical, technology, data, like I am with Fiona today, please let me know. I would love to hear your suggestions. Don't forget, you can book in a time to chat with me or even book in for a Pick My Brain. They've been quite popular lately, where it is a 2-hour session via Zoom, which can be a workshop, which can be a presentation, which can be a brainstorming session with your digital team, sponsorship team, or your data team. How can you better leverage what you're doing and really give your team some insights around the world of digital? So please reach out, sportsgeekhq.com/digital to dollars. No, not digital dollars. sportsgeekhq.com/pick my brain. Can't even get my my reads right, but that's all right. We get there. Before we get in my chat with Fiona Green, don't forget you can sign up to be a Patreon subscriber. You can go to sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon to support all the content that we produce in the sports business space across podcasts, newsletters, and the like. And don't forget, as a Patreon subscriber, you can now tune in and listen to the live podcasts. That's right. You'll get a link and you'll be able to listen when I do the original interviews. So if there is a blooper, you'll know about it, but you will be able to also get that early access. So you'll get a notification from Patreon that there will be an interview like the one that I just did with Fiona, and you can tune in. So sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. And now here is my chat with the author of Winning with Data, now out with version 2, Fiona Green. Very happy to welcome back a good friend of mine on the other side of the globe, all the way in the UK, Fiona Green from Winners. Welcome back to the podcast, Fiona.
Hi, Sean. It's great to be back, and thank you so much for bringing me on a second time, or maybe it's a third time. I can't remember, but thank you anyway.
I know it's you're one of those people with multiple Sports Geek podcast jackets. They're, it's like winning a golf tournament. You get multiple jackets, but yeah, you're very lucky and very thankful for you to come back. Pretty much, just a part of what I want to do in this, series is sort of check in with people in how things are in your part of the world and from a business point of view over the past 15 months. So we spoke, and you've got the book, Winning with Data, and obviously working with a lot of clubs in the CRM space. What's been, what's the update? What's been the effects of COVID, the shutdowns, the stopping of games, with the departments and the people that you've been talking to?
Yeah, it's been tough, as you can imagine. It's been tough around the world. Around the world, apart from in Belarus, of course, where the president said just drink vodka and have saunas. It's been tough around the world. And, of course, our club clients, we've seen no ticketing revenue, as indeed every club's been in the same. And, of course, with governing bodies and federations, there's been no participation, not just with the governing bodies and the federations, but also the local authority sports entities as well. So it's been tough. And I'm just pleased that we're coming out of it, or we seem to be coming out of it. We've got a hold on it. We've got a handle on it. And certainly here in the UK, our bodies, whether it's Sport England or the FA or any of the other NGBs, are doing their best to get people participating, to accommodate people participating as much as they can with the current, with the processes that the government are putting in place. And of course, England's a host for Euro 2020 at Wembley.
Yep.
So it's been great to see that. I think they're allowing something like 26,000 people in. We've got Royal Ascot taking place in a week or so as well, and they've become a test event. So they've managed to get, I think, 12,500 through the door or something like that. So it's good to see things finally changing. But yeah, it's been tough, as it has everywhere. But whilst there's been a lot of sadness and a lot of upset and a lot of tragedy, there's also been a lot of happiness and growing and development going on as well at the same time.
There's a lot of, innovation, looking at the world differently, looking at the sports industry differently. Like, a lot of the sports industry has been really focused on how many people and all the people inside the stadium. And we've had 12 months of fans not being in the stadium. I think I'm waiting for the Digital Transformation Awards. I'm expecting COVID to scoop the pools because it has forced so much innovation in digital transformation. I'm assuming the digital activity that we're seeing in people doing more digital campaigns, running them on social, connecting with their fans in a more, using digital campaigns and different digital activations. There's got to be a data flow that does give the data geeks like yourself a lot to work with. Has there been a similar downflow effect from a data CRM acceleration of some of those projects?
I'd love to say yes, Sean, but the reality is that data is still just not understood and utilised at the level and the rate it should be. And that's no discredit to the sports industry. It's just a statement of fact. There's a global shortage of data skills. It's documented. I remember obviously within those entities, those rights owners that are aware of data, yes, more digital outcome, more digital activity means more data generated, and more importantly, the use of data to inform that digital activity. But we still have many rights owners, the majority of rights owners, who still don't have a handle on how to use this stuff. When COVID first started really hitting us and lockdown, and rights owners were coming out and coming up with these great new interactive concepts and engagement concepts, I did actually write a blog post, and I pointed out Ironman, who I'm a huge fan of as a business and a concept. They launched this app to great fanfare, fantastic fanfare. And it was all about, you can't go outside and do Ironman, so we're going to do it with you. We're going to do it in your home. Download this app. And the point I was making in my blog post was that for all the brouhaha and the beautiful app and all the functionality, I had to go through like 7 screens before they even asked me, can we stay in touch with you? And I thought, well, this is great. We're going to create this groundswell of new Ironman customers because they're delivering it in the home. You don't have to go out. You don't have to find a lake. But then they've not thought about the importance of staying in touch with me after COVID, or when I can come to an event again, or when I can participate in a real life event. And that just continues to be the case. And look, I'm not complaining. It's the reason we wrote the book, the reason we created a course, it's the reason we have a business. But yeah, for all this great digital activity, if we're not thinking about the data, then we're only doing half a job, really. So there has been a lot of that. But again, it's an ongoing education. It's an ongoing learning curve for our industry and indeed other industries.
Yeah, because sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, but you make a really interesting point. So that's one thing, again, we talked quite loudly about, that we're not going to talk about positives to come out of COVID, because it's hard to talk about COVID and suggest there's any positive. But one of the things it has done is it's forced rights owners to think about, what do I do when people aren't coming to my stadium? And certainly for venue owners and clubs and teams, we've been saying for a number of years, don't just build strategies based on getting people into your stadium. Imagine you're Man United and you can't fit another person in your stadium. Build your strategies around engaging with people outside the stadium, because there are people who are never going to come to it because they live on the other side of the world, or they don't have the time, or any other factor. And if you build your strategy to accommodate those, then you're going much far further and much wider, and therefore you can boil down to the strategies to fill your stadium. And of course, that's what COVID has fast-tracked people's thought process, because they couldn't come to the stadium. How do I engage? So I think it's almost given rights owners a reason, an opportunity to leapfrog their thinking by a couple of years. So hopefully that has helped rights owners better prepare for the future.
And I think it's also not just the rights holders. There are partners that work with sports that have continued to run the same activations or the same methods year on, year out, and it hasn't been really data focused because, we can't do something data. We need to see them in a stadium activation, and they've been forced into digital. I was talking to the Morgan at Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, and they'd moved a whole couple of sponsors that never did anything in digital to do some things in digital, and they're like, "Oh, this is amazing!" And so it's also this newfound insights and data that they're getting to go, there is an opportunity, which does completely widen your brief of, hey, we can put this type of opportunity. I mean, the other thing is that people were bemoaning, as little as 15 months ago was, the paper ticket, and we don't know who's in our stadium and we don't know everybody, and now we're seeing many leagues, partly forced by the virus, partly forced by contact tracing, and the fact that now everyone's more willing to give up their data around these types of issues. We're seeing leagues like the NFL have said, no more paper tickets, all mobile tickets. And so that will be another influx of data. I mean, you've already stated the shortage of data scientists. I keep telling people who want to get into sport, guys, learn and girls, learn your data, learn how to crunch an Excel spreadsheet, learn how to analyze trends in data. Like, that's where sports needs more people. We're going to have more data coming out of this. It's going to come down to that analysis, isn't it?
It is, but although it's not just the data scientists, so the data scientists will be able to crunch the numbers and hopefully find the actionable insights. I always think it's not always the data scientist's role to find the actionable insights, but just to be able to put the models together is the business people's role to find the business insights. But it's actually even data-driven marketers are difficult to find. It's easy to find people who know how to post blogs and post content and run a social campaign and run an email campaign. But it's the marketers who understand how to put the data behind that as well. So to use data to ensure it's the most informed, and then to acquire the data that comes out of the back end to again inform the next campaign. So the data scientists as an entity, absolutely hard to find those. It's the marketers who understand the data. It's even the programmers and the developers who understand the role of data. So we constantly come across clients and organizations who they've asked their web developer to build a form, and building a form is an easy HTML or Laravel task, but they're not thinking about the standards that are going into the boxes. They're not thinking about the front-end validation that ensures the data stays clean. They're not thinking about the customer journey. They're not thinking about what happens to the data once I've filled in my form again. And it's not a criticism of the industry, it's just the state of where we are. We have clients who have forms on their website, and when we say, okay, how do we get the data? Gosh, Haven't thought about that.
Yep.
I wanted something on my website to get the data from my fans, but nobody thought to consider what happens next, including the developers. So I do believe it's not just the data scientists. Yes, there's a shortage of those.
No, it is. I mean,
individuals.
You're right. Like, the fact of a form design, like you would be the same, seeing so many, whether it's a survey or a competition entry form, and you're just, there's like 5 questions there that don't make any sense. And even if the fan answers them, they're not providing any value. But someone just decided that, we need to ask them these type of things. And it's like, well, what, you really need to ask yourself, what are you going to do with the answers of that question? If you don't know the answer, then don't ask the question. Well, not
if you don't know the answer, don't ask the question. I would say if you don't know what you're going to do with the answer, if the answer is serving no purpose, then don't ask the question.
Yep.
On surveys, and one of my colleagues just has done a reel actually for Instagram about the importance of surveys. And I think surveys are so underutilized. People will put out a survey and they'll ask for all this insight, and then they'll collect it. And hopefully they will find some insights from the outcomes, but they won't have thought how that survey and somebody's participation in it can improve or can support their own CRM strategy. So they might not have asked for a marketing opt-in, or they might not have used a function when they're sending it to their existing database that allows them to see who answered it without asking someone to fill in their email address. Because when you've already got someone's email address, asking them to give it to you again is a terrible thing to do, because they might provide you with a second email address, and then you end up with a duplicate in your database. You're double counting your fans when it's the same person using 2 emails. So, we could talk for a whole hour about surveys, Sean, but I don't think we should.
No, but it's, I guess the whole data piece, like, we're now in a world where people give up data more freely. Like, we have seen since we last spoke, the QR code is back, everybody. Everyone now knows what a QR code is. They know how to open it. They know it's going to open to a web page. Like, so it's an opportunity. But then we're also, the opposite of that is we're seeing more of the platforms and that are starting to restrict. So we spoke last time about the rollout of GDPR and the restrictions around data collection and doing the right thing, which is all great. But now we're seeing Apple and Google start to put more privacy settings. The iOS 14.5 changes where people with an iPhone could just say don't let me get tracked, and all of those kind of things. It does make it tough from a marketer point of view. That the platforms are forcing all of these privacy changes. What's your, I guess, take on it currently? Is it something that you're fearful that it's all going to be locked down and all of the tools and tactics that we had are going away, or is it something that you just got to work around?
Yeah, firstly, those are 2 different issues as well, what Apple's doing versus what the GDPR states or any data legislation states. But GDPR was never put in place and has never been put in place, any data legislation, to prevent businesses from continue to operate at their highest level. They're just saying, think about your customers first. And, the GDPR is not just about asking someone for permission to contact them. There's actually that's GDPR consent, but there are other frameworks within GDPR. There's GDPR legitimate interest, there's GDPR contract, there's even something called the PECR soft opt-in. PECR is PECR. And if people are schooled and understand this, our position is there is enough out there to allow you to use an email address that you collect, even if someone says don't mark it to me, because they're saying don't mark it to me. But if they gave you their email address in the process of a transaction or participating in a survey or whatever it was, you've still got to engage with them in relation to whatever they signed up for.
But that's part of the lack of information or lack of knowledge from people. Like, there was like when I talk about GDPR and the impact of it, there was a lot of fear and my goodness, if I don't do these things right, I will get a fine. And so some organisations reacted rather aggressively and conservatively to protect what they were doing, which is, I guess, is happening on the other side, like on the platform side, with what Apple is doing and the current fight between them and Facebook. I think there's that same misinformation in the market or lack of education is maybe a better way of putting it.
I don't think it's misinformation at Google or at Apple.
I'm not saying they're distributing it. I'm thinking, I guess people are consuming it from different angles and not knowing what to believe. I don't think they're the one perpetuating it.
Yeah. So when it comes to GDPR, the misinformation, I believe, is coming from, with all due respect to the legal industry, I do think lawyers have played the legal game, which is straight down, black and white, when in reality, any law is about interpretation and application. So black and white lawyers have laid down the law, and unfortunately, rights owners and businesses in general have been caught out. When they've been fortunate enough to have a pragmatic lawyer, somebody who understands that law is not black and white, it's there's a lot of grey in there, and it's the way you interpret it. So long as you're following the black and white of the law, then those rights owners have been supported and have been protected. And we've worked with so many rights owners where we've helped them recover data that their lawyers told them to delete. In terms of Apple and Facebook, I don't know about Facebook per se, but Apple and Google, they're not just following the law, they're introducing their own concepts that they believe is the right message that people want to hear. So they are, of course, following the law, as you would expect. But what they're doing with their cookies is nothing. It's not talked about. There's nothing in GDPR that prevents you retargeting and using cookies. It's just saying make sure you ask people's permission. But this whole thing about cookie retargeting.
They're selling privacy as a consumer option.
They're making a bigger statement about it. And saying not only are we following the law, we're going further than that. And maybe it's a unique selling point for them. Maybe it's because they're targeting the younger generation who is a lot more data savvy than my generation, for example. Yep. I don't really know. What I do know is that it's not going to collapse everybody's businesses. It's going to mostly affect the programmatic advertisers who work with third-party data. But rights owners who use cookie retargeting, pixel retargeting, there's no problem there at all. Google aren't banning that or taking that off their platform. However, I did see a video the other day, thanks to my colleague sharing it with me, about the latest application for Apple. And I'm staggered by this. I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays out. Obviously, email marketing is still the cornerstone of CRM and targeted marketing. It's the most cost-effective, the most trackable, et cetera, et cetera. But Apple's latest announcement is that on Safari, if you're a Safari user, they will make sure that ESPs, email marketing providers, ESP platforms, cannot see if you've opened an email and cannot see if you've clicked on a link in an email. And this is the first time I've heard of this. And I'm interested in what the ESP providers or the actual platform providers are saying about this, because whilst it's only Safari users, it is still an important, a big message, and it's still going to be a percentage of their users. So I haven't had a chance to research any further. I was only shared it this week. I can't remember what the date of the presentation was, but it's the first time I've heard that.
But that is, that is a natural extension of what I guess at least Apple are doing across all of their devices, is to say, if you want it to be private, like they've just rolled out a TVC campaign, and it is quite effective. It's someone there and they buy something, and then the guy from the coffee shop starts following him. Then he goes to the bookshop and he buys something, and the person from the bookshop starts following him. So he's walking around and everyone's following him. And it does give an in real life version of all of these cookies tracking you. And Apple's selling it as a consumer piece. Now the technology, advertising has been a technology that keeps growing and growing, and there's revenue there. They will find workarounds to be able to track, because as an advertiser or as a marketer, you want to know, did it work? So they're going to have to come up with other solutions that won't be able to be detected inside the Safari inbox.
But that instance you just presented, which I love that analogy. I've never heard that before, Sean. If there's a video or a cartoon, I'll
find the Apple TV ad. Yeah.
But Google's move is not going to affect that happening. That's first party retargeting. Okay. In your analogy, it's going to affect the person who goes into the bookshop can still be retargeted by the bookshop, but the agents, the entities like Facebook and Amazon, who'd said to the Facebook man, can I put my pixels there as well? Because I want to track your customer. Yeah. That's the bit that's going away. So the bookshop guys,
and that's why your own data is going to be more valuable. Like,
back to the point,
you won't be able to.
Back to the point about emails. I mean, emails is first-party data. It's more valuable than cookies, even. So that's why the drive to keep your first-party data is still so important and has become even more valuable. But not because of the cookie apocalypse, as I've heard it called. Because again, retargeting off your own pixels is fine. It's the third parties who collaborate on third-party cookies. That's the industry that's going to be hurt, and that's where the advertisers are going to need to find some other process if they can. I'm not smart enough to know what they could do. I'm just banging the drum about the importance of first-party data because of these moves. I don't know what can be done around it.
I mean, I do talk about data in the know your distribution part of Digital to Dollars, where I talk about, hey, here's all the different platforms that you can talk about, and it's normally the pillar there. I'm talking mainly about social media. Hey, you can put your content on Facebook, you can put it on Instagram, you can put it on Twitter. One that I always have, one platform that I always talk about in there, and people sort of is email. And it's like, it's still a platform, it's still a communications channel, it's still a distribution channel for you. I mean, yes, you've still got to get people to open it, but Google is not stopping people opening it. It's not limiting the amount of people that could open it, which is what's happening, in Facebook. You've got 100,000 users and only 20% of those users are going to see that post. So I think there is going to be a bounce back and a snap back. Like, we've lived through the years of collecting as many social fans on different platforms and building out these big audiences, which are terribly valuable, but the value is like what you own in that first party data.
I think this is another reason why, whether it's email marketing or the full spectrum of CRM communication channels, I think this is one of the reasons why it's been so slow to be adopted. It's because when social channels became available, and even just a website, you managed to make a much, much bigger noise about how powerful it was, because firstly, it was entirely free, and secondly, it was perceived as incredibly sexy. So social channels are incredible for reach. Of course they were. Of course they are. But when it comes to actually a sustainable business model, it's not generating new first-party data. Your Facebook, if any business thinks that they're doing a great job because they've got 2 million Facebook followers, well, that's just a vanity metric. It's not a business metric. It's how many of those Facebook followers are in their database, because because they've used Facebook in a way that has allowed them to create the reach through Facebook, but ultimately convert them either to a transacting customer or somebody who's participated or somebody who's just said, yeah, I'll sign up for an email, because, that's the sustainable business opportunity. That's the sustainable data. And as we now know, it's the most valuable data because it's first party. So there is a role for social channels, and, they're fantastic platforms. They're free. They've got incredible reach, incredible functionality. But if your social strategy does not have a line in it that says, and get these followers into our own database, then you're missing a trick. You're just doing social. And it's the same with any digital activation. Digital without data is just digital. It's not sustainable, it's not valuable, and it's in a silo. So, but we're still banging that drum. We've been banging it for 8 to 9 years along with our colleagues. And
it's one that we've got to keep banging that drum. A lot of people started looking at new trends and started looking at, new initiatives or tackling new things. Is there something that you've been looking at in the world of data that you think could, be another tool in your toolkit?
So probably not for winners, because it's too advanced to where we're currently thinking, and probably not for rights owners because it's probably too advanced, because many rights owners aren't even using email marketing at the moment. But it's a fantastic concept, and I would love the opportunity to work with a client and figure this out. But I've been following this guy called Douglas Laney, who wrote a book called Infonomics, and Infonomics is the principle of, it's far wider than this, but in a nutshell, it's the principle of being able to put data on your balance sheet as an asset. And I don't just mean your email marketing database and how many customers will convert to purchase as a result of your email database. It's all the data you generate, the operational data, the customer data, the engagement data. It's all the different parts of data that a business generates. And the principle
so is it in the same space as IP and like the effectiveness of a sports brand and the value that it might have in market, to say the data and the information that we have, and this is me just coming off the data and the information we have about customers has value. It's not just we have 100,000 records and that's great, but it's more the value that can be earned out of that, whether it's through an email marketing campaign or selling tickets or doing something with a partner and selling X amount of cars. Is it in that sort of space that a CEO can look at a data, your chief data officer, and say, what's our data oil well worth now?
Yeah, so it's beyond that first party data. It's beyond knowing how many purchases we can create as a result of 100,000 database. It's understanding how people in your ecosystem are behaving, how long it takes you to do things, operational data, for example, that has a value to other industries. So, for example, you think about a governing body of a sport. So Swim England as just a random example. So their sport is about swimming. They have venues or they work with venues. They track participation data. They track performance data. That could provide a whole lot of insight to the health industry, for example.
Yep.
To the insurance industry, to the construction industry, to the highways and maintenance industry. The point is that principle of moving people around, engaging with people's activities, the physical operational activities to make an event take place. That's not about a person's email address and their customer lifetime value. It's about all the data points that are being generated that have value to another entity or to another industry. And so it's that principle of, you mentioned IP at the beginning. Yeah, if your data, not just your database, but all the data you generate can be assigned as an intellectual property and have value that you can then sell to somebody else.
And we're not talking here, so we're not talking about selling databases. We're talking about selling insights.
No.
We're talking about selling insights around the data that you've got.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's R&D, isn't it? Sell it as a piece of R&D to other industries. So, and that's why I'm saying I don't think it's going to be something within Winner's Toolkit for a very long time, but it's something that I'm fascinated about and I'm reading about thanks to Doug Laney's wonderful book. And he wrote a fantastic post in Forbes last year, and the title of it is "Your company's data could be worth more than your company itself."
Yep.
I mean, come on, what a statement! So that's the thing that I'm particularly interested in.
But there is entire businesses that's easy to apply for, like Netflix subscriber base is effectively it's building its business based on the behaviours of that data to then decide what they're going to next make. The other, taking this model, they could go to MGM or whoever, to a movie studio or to a TV studio and say, oh, you want to do a TV show? We can tell you this about it. And they could license that information and that IP to that piece.
And the TV manufacturers and the electricity suppliers and the telcos, because they know so much about our behaviour in the context of viewing. And so, I would absolutely love it as a football club. Football clubs are sold left, right and centre here in Europe. I would love the opportunity to help a football club understand how, in addition to the stadium, their player contracts, all their other physical assets, their training grounds, how we could actually identify the value of their database, their data, their data subsets, all the data they're generating, their performance data, and put that as an asset onto a balance sheet so that the sale value goes up, clearly, because that's ultimately the objective, to increase the value of sale.
But it's something that, like, from a digital point of view, I've been really big on at least getting the digital revenue attributed to the digital team, so the digital team has a dollar figure, because like the data team, the data team has a dollar figure because they sell a stack of tickets and that's attributed to them. It's sort of in that bucket, or sometimes they use that data licensing to secure a big sponsorship deal. But digital is often doesn't have that dollar figure, and so if imagine the way like the focus of an organization if they knew that getting a richer data set, understanding the data, connecting the data of different pieces, because sport is so mainstream and has so many different sections of the community. It is quite powerful for many businesses if you're able to have that piece.
I think what challenges digital teams with being able to put a dollar sign on the end of it is the different attribution models that are available and being used. You've got first click, last click, contributing click. I think, but it's entirely possible for digital teams. I actually think it's more possible for the digital teams than the data teams because the data teams are supposed to be cross-organisation. I meant to say it's more difficult for the data teams because data teams are supposed to be cross-organisational. So there shouldn't be a data team that's generating a pound sign because he supported ticketing and it's ticketing that generates the pound sign. And it's the data team that supports digital and it's digital that generates the pound sign. So to me, your data team is almost like your IT team or your FD.
Yeah, they're definitely a horizontal service across the business. But I think there's a stronger correlation between there's our database size and there's our membership season ticket tally and there's our season ticket sales, and it's far easier for a CEO to see those numbers and connect them to a dollar figure. Where digital has had trouble is that they're doing a bunch of stuff digital, which is great, and then they're doing sponsorship activations or content for sponsorship, and it's just that piece. I just want that piece said. What do we value that at? Do we, is it 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand? Just say, don't have to hand the money over to digital, but at least attribute them on, you ran that campaign. We charge the sponsor for that. So they start, mostly it's just a mentality shift in the same way we're talking about changing an organization to have a data focus. Normally when I go through this process, the digital team starts thinking commercially and stop thinking about creating cool stuff on the web or on mobile. They start thinking about creating cool stuff on the web on mobile that serves a purpose for a partner, a sponsor, or a ticking objective.
So we have a model for demonstrating absolute cast iron return on investment for sponsor activation, okay? If you think about the way that a sponsor would spend their marketing budget to support the activation of their sponsorship, so, for example, a brand is and this was the UEFA Booking.com case study in my book that we did about how many years ago? 3 or 4 years ago now. If the digital marketing team thinks instead about sponsor activation for sponsor activation's sakes, and instead thinks about getting our fans and our customers to go to our sponsor's website or landing page or destination page, all of a sudden they're thinking in the same space as classic digital marketers, okay? And they're thinking about, that could then lead them to think about cost per thousand, CPM, CPA, CPLs, the traditional metrics that a corporate brand uses, anybody uses actually. So if they can start getting into that mindset and demonstrating to their sponsors that they delivered on a cost per acquisition or a cost per thousand that was way less than what they would get on Facebook or Google ads, because the starting point is our website. So we're converting customers that we know have an interest in our sport, and they're going over to your website and you are a sponsor. Return on investment is going to be a heck of a lot higher. CPM or CPA is going to be a heck of a lot lower. And that to me is extremely tangible dollar sign return on investment for sponsors. Not only that, but it will help rights owners. Everybody talks about rights owners becoming media houses, but we've tended to think in terms of the way we create and manage content. I want them to think about being media houses in the way that they place digital advertising budgets on behalf of their sponsors. And it's a service, obviously, we offer to our rights owner clients, that not only will we demonstrate how you can get a much more effective, cost-effective campaign going and create higher return on investment. Your next step is then to say, well, okay, instead of sending your leverage budget to the local media, digital media agency, who are going to make 10, 20 or 30% commission on the spend, why not put your leverage budget with the rights owner who can make that 10, 20 or 30% commission? So to me, it enables the rights owners to talk to a bigger audience when they're trying to sell the sponsorship, because they're not just talking to the sponsorship people who have a much smaller budget, they're talking to the digital media budget.
The media buying space is something that the sports world needs to get their heads around and sell in that method, and not just sell patches on logos and activations.
Totally. So take that type of thinking and you can sell to the bigger budget holders, and you can potentially generate some commissions on ad spend. But if nothing more, you're going to be generating a real return on investment for your sponsors.
And it does lead you also to pitching and winning campaign budgets as opposed to year-long sponsorship budgets.
Exactly.
And so, because you're fishing in a different pond and a different bucket of money that's there.
But you want the year-long sponsor budgets. You want the year-long sponsor budgets plus the campaign activation budgets.
So you went and added another 10,000 words to your book. I know the pain, and I haven't even done it, of writing a book. What makes you go back and update a book?
Well, because, Sean, you'll know that when you submitted the manuscript for your book, it took you so long to write it, you wish you could have updated it there and then, because things have changed, typos were missed, your education has also developed, so you would have reframed it differently. So, there were all these things, never mind the changes in technology that empower different activities. So I was over the moon when Routledge supported a second edition. So it's 10,000 new words, but 26,000 of the existing words changed. So in total, it's 36,000 new words in total.
And that is when you're writing on a topic, and our friend Paul Greenberg's the same, always talking about and writing about CRM. It's an evolution. It's always evolving. So you're trying to set up and talk about the overarching strategy without getting too deep in the weeds on the tech. But then the tech stack is really important, and it's changing all the time. So it's tough working and writing in this space. But do you want to talk a little bit about some of the new case studies? Because that's the best part of books like this, learning from others. A phrase that I use, steal with pride. If someone else is doing it really well, there's a way for you to adapt and twist it for your business. What are some of the new case studies in the new book, in the updated edition?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So there were some entirely new case studies, such as one from the Portland Trailblazers, which is just fantastic and full of some fantastic, great insight, and also LA Galaxy. But we've also updated some of the stellar case studies as well. We had a cracking case study from both Arsenal and the MLS in the first version, and both of those have been updated. And actually the MLS one talks about what Charlie Shinn, when he was at the MLS, how he took the use of data for sponsorship that adds on to the stuff that you and I have just talked about and continues going on. It's incredible what they've done over there. That's
a good thing about, like, a good and successful CRM case study should go to the next level when you're coming back. So, one, terrific for you for picking some winners, and then also, terrific for the case studies with MLS and Arsenal to take it to the next level.
But terrific for the people who read it as well, and they can think about what's possible. Because even if a rights owner reads it who hasn't even yet started email marketing, for example, they can see what's possible. And it might take them 5 years to get there, but they can build a roadmap that's thinking about that vision. The Arsenal case study from Mick Canetta, who I think you've had on your show before, he talks quite a bit about the impact of COVID. His case study is about business change, cultural adoption. So, of course, he talks an awful lot about COVID. That's fascinating. The GDPR case study, because, of course, the case study provided by Bas Schneider at AZ Alkmaar was before it was actually implemented. So it very much focused on how to prepare for it. The case study in the new editions provided by AS Roma and talks about the impact it actually had, because we're 3 years after. So that's fascinating. But even on the data-driven marketing case study, I was thinking about getting a really highfalutin case study about cross-channel marketing, but so few entities still use cross-channel marketing, it was difficult for me to find one. So I took it to the other extreme, and I used a smaller rights owner, Lincoln City Football Club, who are a were at the time, I think, a League Two club. Or they were always already a League One club. But a small rights owner who's demonstrating how much you can actually do when all you're using is email marketing and a basic platform like MailChimp. So we've kind of taken that one to the opposite extreme. But yeah, some really great case studies that have been updated.
And was there, like in touching base with people, was there whole new models that had to be developed coming, like, everyone had business as usual, and this is how business worked pre-COVID. And then there like, we're in COVID, and then trying to get out of COVID. Like, was there a lot of rework of, well, that won't work because we're in a different world. So has there been a lot of rework for some of the people that you touch base with in?
Yeah, so this was actually rewritten, even though it wasn't published until March. Obviously, it takes a long time to go through the publishing process. So this was actually submitted, I think, in November last year. So we still weren't out of lockdown. But two particular references to what you've just talked about there come to mind. And it's one with Portland Trailblazers, who talked about, such a truism. All the data models we created pre-COVID are going to have to be rewritten because, firstly, we've got no transactional data. Nobody's bought a ticket. Secondly, people's economic status might have changed. They might have lost their job. And then thirdly, their attitudes might have changed because pre-COVID, the most important thing in the world might have been to get to a Thursday night game. But now, hold on, we've just been through this. We've lost people we love. Maybe their attitudes have changed as well. So that principle of creating models or personas or whichever terminology you want to use, they're going to have to be largely rewritten. And the other example came from Mick Canetta, who at Arsenal, who was talking about the ticketing sales strategy as they were coming out of COVID. And they were at the time potentially having the opportunity to do a test event. And he said, but, my numbers are down. I'm allowed 2,000 people in the stadium. I've got to think about who wants to sit with who. He said, it's almost like every single game, I have to write a new ticketing plan because the rules are going to change and we're going to have to try and accommodate as many people as possible. So those are two particular references that refer specifically to what you're talking about.
I mean, that's what, we have seen here in Melbourne, like the early on, and I hosted a bunch of sports biz Zooms over the last 12 months talking to people. And like early on, it was like, everyone's going to be just can't wait to get back, missing sport. We're going to get back. And then when like it started opening up and you could go, there were people that didn't want to rush back. They either had hesitancy around the virus. Were they going to get it? Who were they sitting next to? Yeah. Then there was, I didn't get to sit in my seat that I normally sit in, so I'm not going. Or, actually, I spent 12 months watching it on TV. Like, so this change of behaviour, that has come, and it's not, there were still the people, let me in, I want to get in, I don't care, I'll wear a mask over, whatever it is. But then there were still a lot of people that were like, I don't want to go yet because I don't want to hop on a train. Right. And so like those kind of things, I think we've still got 18, 24 months of that to go through. So where can people purchase the book? Is it available in all good bookstores and online outlets?
Yeah, that's right. Routledge published it. We didn't self-publish it. So as you can imagine with Routledge, they've got a great distribution network. So I think I was so proud when the first edition came out and I saw it on Amazon in Japan. Obviously the whole Amazon network and Waterstones and any online retailer, as well as the publishers themselves.
Terrific. Well, simply Google Winning with Data to get the updated edition. I want to wrap things up. Appreciate you taking the time today. Going to do the Sports Geek Closing 5. I didn't go check our answers from last time we did it, so look forward to some variety in the answers, or the same answers. We don't quite know. Do you remember the first sports event or an early sports event memory from an attendance in one of your first sports event memories?
My very first sports event, I do remember, it was Lincoln City versus Tottenham Hotspur in the Milk Cup here in Lincoln. And I remember it because I was a 16 or 15-year-old girl and I saw Glenn Hoddle. And I was just besotted by this beautiful blonde giant. My first sports event of any scale that completely blew me away, of course, was the 1994 World Cup. I was part of USA 94, and every single event there, from the venue draw at the Hilton Hotel on the Fifth Avenue to the World Cup final, was just mind-blowingly brilliant because the Americans put it together. But my first sporting event was Milk Cup, Lincoln City versus Spurs.
Terrific, terrific. Have you got a favourite food memory or a food you're looking forward to eating at a sports event when you get to go back to sports?
I love all concession food, but my favourite food memory is, you know how America is generally ahead of everybody's curve, yeah? Trends and insight, they're always there first. And I remember a seat event with Christine Stoffel and yourself, and we were touring around a stadium. It was probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And there was a sign above one of the concession stands, and it said vegan hot dogs available. And I was like, yeah, vegan hot dogs. What are they going to get, like 2 people at the stand? And of course, now everybody's vegan. So that's my favourite food memory, seeing that sign and thinking, oh, that's not going to fly.
Yeah, I probably walked straight by and went to the next bar. What's the first app you open in the morning? Has it changed over the last 12 months?
Yeah, it has. It's my Newsweek feed on my Apple phone. I love that soundbite of knowing what's going on in the world.
Terrific, terrific. Is there someone that the listeners should be following? It might be a fellow author or someone else that's doing some good work in the world of sports.
I'm not going to give just one person because it's impossible, but Mark Ritson's always my favourite. I've mentioned Douglas Laney already. You've already mentioned Paul Greenberg and his friend Brent Leary. And, of course, in our space, it's Russell Scabetti.
Oh, terrific, terrific. So it's like a starting 5 of CRM All-Stars. It's like I'd like to see them line up. Just if Russell is listening, just remember that Team Digital still holds the title belt for that softball championship at AT&T. I know it rubs him the wrong way. Last question, and we did discuss social media platforms, but what social media platform is your MVP? Is your go-to platform?
My MVP for business is Twitter, but I just started using Insta personally about 6 months ago, and I love it. I'm obsessed with the videos. That's on a personal note, though. But
I have been seeing your videos pop up. I'll put what's your handle so you get some more followers.
Yeah, my fantastic social media consultant does it for us. It's Winning with Data. The hashtag is Winning with Data. It's not my personal one; it's the business one, but she does a great job.
Yeah. And you can see more insights around data. I've been catching those videos and your face popping up my Insta feed, and it's good. So it's good to see you on Instagram. Fiona, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Really do appreciate you coming back, and hopefully in the near future, travel will be allowed and we'll be able to meet up at a conference somewhere in some part of the world. I hope that can happen sooner rather than later.
Fingers crossed. Thank you very much indeed, Sean. It's been a pleasure. And by the way, I love listening to all your podcasts. You get some great guests on, and the way you grill them is fantastic. So anybody listening out there, please stay tuned to Sean and all his podcasts.
Learn from the Sports Geek Amplify Season 1 cohort. Timo, Vlast, Stellar Algo, Ubi Park, and Zoof. For more, go to sportsgeekamplify.com.
Thanks again to Fiona Green. You can send her a tweet to say thank you. Fiona Green 66. Message her on LinkedIn. She's very active on LinkedIn. And please follow and comment on her posts on LinkedIn. Sorry, not on LinkedIn, on Instagram. On Instagram. Winning with Data is her Insta handle. And Fiona did reply to me after doing the interview and said she forgot something. She wanted people to comment, and she's willing to have a giveaway. She's announced a giveaway post-interview, which is terrific. So I'm going to ask you to go to Winning with Data Instagram account, comment that you listen to the Sports Geek podcast, and she's promising the first 3 people to comment say she will send you the book. So that's a terrific offer, and thank you very much, Fiona. So go to Winning with Data on Instagram. Tell Fiona you listen to the podcast. The first 3 people are going to get a copy of version 2 of Winning with Data. Before I wrap things up, I just want to give a quick update on the Sports Geek Amplified cohort. They're absolutely kicking some goals. Congratulations to James and the team of Last signing a deal with the NFL, managing over 1,000 NFL players. So if you're looking to help manage your players and all the activations they need to do, please go listen to the Sports Geek Amplify episode with James. Go to sportsgeekamplify.com to listen to any of these. Zoomph, Amir and the team continue to add new clients and also useful downloads, the latest on cryptocurrency and some of the options there and what it's doing to the space from a reporting point of view and all the stats around it and the buzz. Zoomph is a great tool to be able to measure that kind of thing. Go to Timo, listen to the episode with Timo. Go check out their roadmap on how they're helping sports adapt to the changing landscape due to COVID with the stop-start nature of community sport. A payment system like Timo is helping sports adapt to that. Stella Argo, it's always great news when you see startups and businesses taking on new clients because they start hiring. So go check out their careers page. If you're a data geek, a data developer, if you listen to this episode because of Fiona and you've got some skills in that space, check out the careers page on Stella Argo. It's great to see they're adding more people. More people means there's more work. So congrats to Vince and the team. And the team at UbiPark are super busy as predicted because more people are driving post-pandemic, which is causing more stress in the parking market, which is why a solution like UbiPark comes in at the right time. So go to sportsgeekamplify.com to check out all of those great sports technology companies and how they can help you or your team or your venue. That's it from me for this week. As always, if you want to talk to me and if I can help you, I want to work on big problems. There's a lot of big problems in the industry right now. So go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call to book in a time. Other than that, thank you very much again to all the Patreon subscribers. I really do appreciate it. You can become one at sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
We'd love your support on our Patreon campaign. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. Have you listened to the Sports Geek Amplify series? Go to sportsgeekamplify.com to listen.